be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book.
Nothing like a bigoted lunatic.
No, I'm not.
Creates an image as if there's these people that are here against us.
Okay guys, I'm not gonna lie, the title of this episode is definitely a little bit triggering, I get it. But I wanna make this very clear, I'm not someone that is far right. I'm not someone that is gonna sit here and espouse things about Tommy Robinson as if he's a hero or a saint. That's not gonna happen. I'm someone who's going to be critical when it's appropriate, but if he does provide even a shred of sense and nuance, I will explore it and discuss the nuance in it. Unlike the media, the mainstream media out there that have done a disservice to women and victims of violence, children of violence, by anyone's hands. We will be discussing that today, and if you're too triggered by that, you can go away. But without further ado, let's explore this topic. I just want to get some house cleaning out the way. If you enjoy this topic, if you want to hear me talk about anything else, if you hate it, subscribe, hit the like button, put into the comments what you hate, put into the comments what you love. If you're enjoying it a lot, go into the notification bell, put a notification in, go watch other episodes. They're not too bad, in my opinion. Also, if you find me interesting, you think that this is provocative and you want to hear more of just my random opinion on things, go into the description and go and follow my other socials where I give more of my quick takes. Without further ado, let's deep dive into this.
This is totally controlled media, yeah? And they know all I've done is report the truth. I've done what you should be doing, yeah? I filled your gap because you're all failures.
Who is Tommy Robinson? Tommy Robinson's real name is Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon. He grew up in Luton Town. He's spoken about, what triggered him on this crusade of hatred, in my opinion, or misguided anger, maybe in the nicest way to look at it, to Islam, was an incident involving his 13-year-old cousin.
So my cousin was 13 or 14 when this happened to her, when we were growing up. And in the end, they got her hooked on heroin as a child, and she woke up once being raped by loads of them, big bearded men all raping her. She run naked through the streets. Now, when the family went to the police, this was the attitude from the police for decades. The police just said, she's a drug addict. And she was a drug addict. She's a child. So she'd end up climbing out the windows to get back to the Muslims, or her heroin to then be continually over and over again as a child. Now, this is something I grew up knowing. I grew up seeing young girls who were taken from their families, girls I went to school with, and it was just common. It was common, and we knew the police didn't do anything about it.
This incident sparked it, but it's also birthed from his past as a football hooligan, someone who was part of Luton's firm, was a part of a culture that would, go to football games and, without any other way to say it, fighting other football fans.
What was I, 21, 22? Man, they all come for me after that. So I was and at that time I was a young football hooligan. I was that was what I grew up, and I aspired crazily. So a lot of my family members, my uncles, my cousins were members of Luton. They formed Luton's Men in Gear. It's a football hooligan group, and as a young lad, that's what I gravitated towards. And I think it was a bit of a search for an identity. I was brought up in a town where white English are a minority. My mum was Irish. My stepfather, who is my dad, who brought me up, was Scottish. I guess I was searching a bit for my own identity. I found it at football.
I've never claimed to be an angel either. So I was part of a football scene. So we clashed then with the drug gangs, the Muslim drug gangs. And
I do like the fact that he's shown no shame to bring that up. It shows some degree of awareness by him, or maybe it's also he can't skirt around it because everyone knows everything about him now. But I do appreciate that. And he's also mentioned that he felt kind of lost at the time, and he joined football hooliganism as a way to connect with something, to be a part of a culture. And I have to admit this, that it's not unusual not unusual for young men to, when they're lost, profoundly lost, to find themselves in aggressive environments, thuggery, some people may say, but violence or that energy needs to be channeled, and when it goes unchanneled, it can display itself like this. So I don't want to crucify him for joining the hooliganism. He has left it, but like I said, he was triggered by the incident of his 13-year-old cousin, and it forced him to enter more of a realm of activism, if he wants to call it. That's what he calls it. Some people call it bigotry, but there was also incidents by an extremist group in Luton called the Sword of Islam, which he speaks about.
They took control of a school, and I was probably 2019 or something.
That was where?
This was in Chechnya in Russia.
Yeah, okay, I remember the story.
And what happened was, the parents were all outside the school, and all the Muslim jihadists are inside the school with their pupils, with their children. And then they start butchering them and killing them. And I remember watching the parents drop to their knees and they're screaming, yeah? And I remember watching it thinking, what is this? This isn't one man that's gone in and done this. This is a whole group of people. So what? And then I had to understand what brings someone to do that. And 2 weeks later, I saw an interview in a chicken shop in my hometown of Luton with a man called Saif al-Islam, which translates as Sword of Islam. He was second in command of al-Mujahideen, the group, yeah, whose head office is in my town. And I saw him saying an attack like that would be justified in a British school. And that was my wake up. I said, who's this man? And I looked him up. Who's his group? And I looked up who they were. And then I looked up Omar Bakri. And then I started understanding their ideology and trying to work out. And then for me, these are a danger. Yeah. So then I organised and I looked, and they used to have a stall set up. So we have a Don Miller's Bakery, a famous, it's like your Tim Hortons, yeah? We have a bakery chain in Luton Town Centre. And every Saturday, this terrorist group are there openly promoting hatred, yeah? Just openly sending people to fight for the Taliban, recruiting people. So the Stockholm bomber, who was a Iraqi Muslim who come to university in Luton, was a nice young man till he come to Luton, yeah? Then, when you're vulnerable at your most vulnerability, away from home for the first time, in university, they pounce.
Yeah, that's typical cult behaviour.
This is what. So they pounce.
Yeah.
And they got him, and then he went and blew himself up. Yeah. So.
And really, since then, Tommy has been on a full-on rampage against Islam. He's gone full nuclear mode.
They talk about the burqa. So you've got burqas just everywhere. Everywhere. They've got no place in modern society, burqas. The burqa's just a complete... That to integration, that to Britain.
So why are you sitting in front of me? Fucking do
The
something.
zone, but
What do you want to do, you fucking little prick? What are you going to get the fuck off me? Get the fuck off me. What are you going to do? What are you going to fucking do? What are you going to fucking do, you little fuck?
So why didn't you say it now?
What do you want me to say?
Yeah?
Ideology, it's got no place.
Yeah?
It's got no place, bruv.
And what you
Sharia
got?
law's got no place in
What
this
you
country.
got?
What do you mean, what have I got?
Go on, tell me
What do you
then.
mean,
What do you
have I
stand
got?
for?
What do I stand for?
Yeah, what do you stand for?
Integration, bruv. I don't stand for paedophilic practices, yeah? Yeah.
What do you stand for? Go on, tell me.
What do you mean, what do I stand for? What do you stand for?
Racism,
How's it racism?
Eh?
How's it racism? How's it racist to oppose a fascist ideology?
Fascist ideology.
It is
And what
fascist.
do you? You're racist.
How am I racist?
You hate Asians,
what
yeah?
race? What race are Asians? What race are Muslims?
I heard. Come on,
Down,
where
down,
are you running away
oh,
from?
because I know
Why you running
I'm not
away
going to know
from?
what you like, bruv. You have
Why
about
you-
100 you're in a
It's important in this part of the video to talk about not just the mistakes, the oversight, the conflating of issues, the bigotry, the working with people that he shouldn't be working with, a part of that aspect of Tommy Robinson. And it just really starts with some of his ideology about conflating refugee and migrant crisis in the UK, conflating them as an Islam problem.
But how would you tell who those Muslims are or where they come
I'm
from?
just asking you, do you believe, would you have a ban like Donald Trump suggested in America? Would you have a ban on Muslims entering the country, new Muslims trying to have a home in this country?
I believe we need to protect the British public right now.
So what's the answer to the
Including
question?
British Muslims?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, the British public. I didn't say British non-Muslim public. I said the British public. We've had
What
excuse
are
me.
you protecting British Muslims from?
We've had
Tommy,
3
you're a
terror
straight
attacks.
talker.
Children are being killed.
Yes, we all know what's been happening.
Yes, I would. I would stop.
You would ban all Muslims?
I would temporarily halt Muslim immigration to this country until we get a grip of the problem. Now,
Look, flat out, he's just got it wrong. There are many people on the right, far right, who discuss immigration as a problem, conflate many issues. They conflate what a migrant is, what an undocumented migrant is, what a refugee is. And again, I don't say that to be patronizing and speak down to people who are not fully informed in the information. Heck, they don't make YouTube videos about them. But it's to highlight how people like Tommy, people like Nigel Farage and the people funding them are behind the conflating of issues. They like us in a place where we're adversarial against each other, essentially fighting each other on things without focusing on the true problems. It also is evading the difficult things that need to happen in order for society to come out of this sort of hyperinflation that we've been in since the year 2008. This is not the fault of necessarily Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage. It's the fault of government, but their rhetoric allows their faults to grow and not change anything. I'm gonna put it simple as this, and I'll put a video from Jimmy the Giant after that. Migrants and refugees are not the problems of society. It's government oversight, government overspending.
Now, refugees really are the ones that people lose their shit about. All the stop the boat, smash the gangs, all of that shit, all the millions a day, etc. That is about refugees. For perspective, so that you know, refugees get about £200 a month, which you will know in England will buy you a pint of milk. They're not living good. They get banged up in these shitty hotels with like 4 other people, all just cramped in, all on single beds. And they're not allowed to work until their application gets approved. Billiam can be stuck in limbo waiting for his asylum seeker application to be approved for years because the system is incredibly underfunded and overburdened.
In fact, the asylum seekers tell us they're bored and unhappy. They're not allowed to work whilst waiting for their claims to be processed, and that can take a long time. This man from Eritrea has been in the system for 8 years.
For me, it's absolutely terrible. It's not good. It's not good. Just leave, just eat, go back to the room. Just eat, go back to the room.
That's your day. You eat, go back to your room.
That's it. That's all day.
And government incompetence that has led us into this place where there's not enough jobs and we're losing our Britishness. What Britishness means is defined by the individual. And when people say that and are incapable of defining it, you know it's a ruse. You know they're trying to trick you.
Enjoying it here? Yeah. Nice hotel, nice food. Healthy food. It looks like a nice hotel. Yeah, how many people are in here?
I think there's 200.
200. Lots of children? No children.
No,
not many children. No. Do you know what they have in here? They have a full-time doctor and nurses, full-time stationed in here. Full-time. So you know when you can't, my dad tried to get a doctor's appointment earlier. Couldn't get one. Full-time. Full-time. The food's bad. The food's bad. Is it free? Yeah, it's free.
Another problem with Tommy is his flat out incompetence. I mean, he does not do a diligent enough job of distancing himself from racists. I'm not gonna lie, Nigel Farage is just as bad. They are constantly on the defensive, constantly saying, oh, this former racist shouldn't have been there. Oh, this former racist shouldn't have been there. Hey, I get it. You can't control when you have a large movement, everyone there, but it just happens to be that they're full of them in their establishment, full of them in their wing. Yes, I understand that at times they are just victims of circumstances, but at the very least, I believe they are smart enough to know that this, in some place or form, is attracting the worst kind of people in society, the most racist, the most vitriol kind of people in society. They know that, they know what they're playing into, and I'm not going to sit here and defend it.
To watch, because you're too soft-handed, because they're not fucking white, basically. You daren't enforce the law because there's too many people who aren't white, and you don't know what to do you? You don't even draw your batons, you don't put your riot gear on. You let your officers get clapped from the side. You're watching police officers get sideswiped and punched and kicked all over the floor. And you don't enforce the law, why not? What's your problem? Oh man, I'm just watching it and I'm getting so fucking angry. Just thinking, how the fuck can you let that happen in our capital city? How can you move? It's not that you let it happen. You purposely let it happen. You moved the men out of the way that were there to protect that statue, and you made sure that those people could come and vandalise it. Piers Morgan, any celebrity who has supported this bullshit, those 27 injured police officers, it's on your hands, okay? I think 70% of people killed in police custody in the United States are white. You talk about white privilege. 600,000 crimes were committed in the United States last year by black people against white people. 60,000 crimes were committed by white people against black people. Don't bring this bullshit. Got it? That racial tensions that they might have in the United States, we don't have based on race. Race politics, which BLM, you've done more to break down race fucking integration in this country than anyone's tried to do. Much more than the National Front ever done. Look what you've done. Look what you're doing. The divide that you're about to create in this country is fucking going to be unrecognisable. How fucking weak. Anyway, next Saturday, I'll see you all in London.
Another thing that he does, he just believes Islam is inherently violent.
I done a presentation in Russia called The Rape of Britain, yeah, where I examined all of this, including the men's quotes. So what I've done is took the men's quotes from the court cases and literally found the verses of what they said. Yeah? It's like the man said this in court. Here's what he said, yeah? Here's what he says, yeah? He literally quoting the Quran whilst he's raping her, bruv. Like, come on, man.
It's wrong. He's hyper-focusing on this. Now, this is a point I was going to make later in the video, but I'm going to just make it now. Every ideology can be, when I say ideology, I mean ideology, religion, political ideology, political ways of thinking can be manipulated into thinking that it's negative. It's not the ideologies themselves, in large part, that are negative. It's the people, it's the interpretation. But he seems to hyper-focus on Islam. Again, it comes from a birth of hatred when he was at a younger age, at adolescent age, a more childlike age. Again, when you look at his past as someone who was a part of hooliganism, he sees himself as lost. I still think he's a little bit lost and has attached himself to this crusade to find purpose in himself, because Tommy is someone, when you hear him speak, stays very diligent in his issues and doesn't square away, can never acknowledge inconsistencies. And I get in the purpose of a debate or an argument, acknowledging your inconsistencies can lead to weakness, but that lack of that shows to me, it happens so often, that lack of acknowledgement of any inconsistencies, that he hasn't thought this fully through, or he refuses to think this fully through, or doesn't want to because it's all he has.
5 dead children just in Telford. Where's everyone crying about that? Where's all the massive street protests about that? Affected in every town and city. Where is the response to that? I think, fucking hell, man. Talk about jump on the bandwagon, everyone play like a victim. Oh, fucking get over it, man. And that's me saying it in the sense that, yes, it's fucking terrible what happened to that man. I'm pretty sure the statistics show that more white people are murdered by police in the United States than black people.
Now, this brings me to the point about grooming gangs, and he's discussed grooming gangs and again makes it out as if it's an Islamic issue, as if it's only an Islamic issue, which is disgusting, unfair and unfounded. However, and I must say this because I've tried my best to understand Islam a little bit more in the last few weeks, especially for this episode. He uses the discussions around Aisha and, peace be upon him, the Prophet, as a way to say that they excuse violence. They excuse us sleeping with underage women.
Prophet Muhammad had a 6-year-old wife and he had sex.
Astaghfirullah.
What's that?
That's debated and disputed.
It's debated and disputed. In the Quran, it gives you instructions of how to divorce a prepubescent girl. So you've only married her and you're divorcing her. Yeah. What the fuck? What are you going to divorce? She hasn't even started puberty.
Yeah, that's where it's see.
The Quran was written many moons ago. So can we just be a little bit fair and understand the context and the time? Also, the relationship was, I believe, consummated at a different age, which, consummated means...
To shag.
Yes, it means that. You get it. But let's move on. And again, you might still think it's wrong. And I'm with you. I'm with you. But context. Context is very important, and you know what? He's a Christian man himself, and I'm not trying to do whataboutism, but what about the Bible? It happens in the Bible, it happens in Judaism. He defends Israel all the time, and they're very Jewish. You can tell, I don't want to call it a grift, but it might be a grift. He might be just using this as a political means to garner attention, to keep his money afloat. There's a highly likely chance of that. But also, the fact that he will not engage with other debates, the fact that he won't engage with other religions that have this in their text shows to me that he has not thought this fully through. If he was agnostic or someone that didn't believe in any sort of religion, I could hear that. I could hear that debate a bit more. But the fact that he's hyper-focusing on the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Aisha, but not other aspects of Christianity, the Bible, and things that happen in Christianity, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, shows you that this is very ignorant and indeed. But I wouldn't have made this video if I was just telling you what's wrong with Tommy Robinson. I personally believe that is very clear. But the grooming gangs and the hiding of the media, I'm sorry guys, I'm sorry Guardian readers, it's kind of true. In Rotherham, there was 1,400 cases of women being abused by groups that were mostly Pakistani men who claimed to be Islamic, because that behavior is not Islamic. Also Oxford, Telford, Rochdale, there were cases of where grooming gangs were trafficking women, abusing women, and it went undocumented.
The report highlights how some officers saw abused children as runaways or even petty criminals. One of the many examples in this report, a 15-year-old girl who said she was raped in a park. Her father claimed a police officer told him that it might teach her a lesson about who she hangs around with.
Post-edit clip here, guys. Okay, this clip is going to be about the Rotherham, I don't know why I keep saying it like that, Rotherham grooming gang scandal. So, the Rotherham grooming gang scandal. It's important to say this, that it was majority Pakistani men involved with majority white working class women, which is the dynamic that Tommy Robinson hyper focuses on. But it's important to say, because how did something like that fall underneath the radar? How did something like that go on for so many years without people mentioning it? And it's a strange one. It lives in that intersectionality between class and it's kind of sexism in a strange way. The police have historically handled sexual assault poorly. And on top of that, I think you couple that with the fear of political outrage and it got ignored. You know, it's another place where classism meets. They think because the women were on drugs, as you've seen from the other clip, that they kind of welcomed this life. They were...
If I talk about the failures from the police, when the family, I want you to understand and try and picture this as though it was your family relative. When the family were going to the police, when the girl is missing for 2 days, 3 days, yeah, and there is no response, and up until the Rotherham report, people wouldn't believe these stories because they are unbelievable. They would say she's a drug addict, because in the end she was a drug addict, because she was hooked on heroin that they were giving to her.
Perhaps their cries were ignored. And it's something that people from ethnic minority communities ironically understand, where abuse happens in ethnic minority homes. It happens in Muslim homes. It happens in Muslim homes. I know women who have Muslim backgrounds who've been abused in their own home, and their cries become silent. I know it to happen in the black community, in black homes. Some family members are weird, I'm not gonna lie, they're weird, they're wrong, but their cries become ignored. There's an element of shame, there's a fear the police can't handle things well, and you see it with white working class women in Rotherham, Luton, Oxford. It makes you wonder, how did the police cock up so badly? And it's a shame, because grooming happens all over the spectrum. It's not an ethnic minority issue, it's not an Islam issue, it's not a Christian issue, although it happened in the Vatican. It's an issue of power, misuse and misguidance, and a failure from the police. And it's funny that Tommy doesn't focus more on the failure of the police. He does as he progresses throughout his career, but he hyper-focused on Islam. And these people are not Islamic, they're not Muslims. They are people that abused and manipulated the scripture to benefit their own dark means. It's also important to highlight, when we're debating with Tommy, there's a dismissiveness, sorry. Don't know what's going on. It's the new room. I'm not meant to be here. But that dismissiveness about, it happens in all cultures. Engage with it is what I would tell people to do. Face it head on. Tommy's currently inside because of his documentary, which will be the following clip after this. And in ignoring things emboldens his supporters. It doesn't show his supporters that there is this issue. It It's a failure from the system, and we need to confront the system, not the people who manipulated the system. Those people should be in prison. Those people should be jailed, but they're not the systemic issue. They're not the systemic issue. It comes from the police. It comes with our culture of sexual violence, how we look at it, how we understand it, the ideal victim. I thought conversations had moved forward. I thought we had got better, but evidently we haven't. And it's important to say this: does Tommy weaponize this issue, these failures? Yeah, he does. He does, and it is sad that he does that. But more than anything, I think facing it head on is the way in which we can tackle it. But he does become emboldened when you dismiss the argument, when it's not dealt with. There should have been an independent investigation into why this scandal went under the radar for so long. There should have been something, but there wasn't, and it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that went under the radar for so long. I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed. But his documentary went on to try and explain the case around, forgive me if I say it wrong, Jamel Hijazi, and how that was also manipulated by the media into, ideal victim and ideal perpetrator, when it was far more complex.
This video of an ignorant, racist, bullying a 15-year-old Syrian refugee went viral on the internet yesterday, and it's pretty hard to watch. Here's a gigantic, rotund fail-son with the worst haircut ever, pursuing his target like a hyena. His victim is Jamal, who escaped the conflict in Syria, only to get relentlessly harassed and physically assaulted by this smooth-brained maniac where the large dipshit.
He talks about the Jamel Hijazi case, where the young teenager Hijazi was beaten up by a white counterpart, where he was alleged to be waterboarded. Water was thrown over his face. I can only use images. I'm sorry. You have to look into it yourself. I'll leave clips into the description. But there was inconsistencies where some people said that, Jamel himself wasn't an innocent party, despite being portrayed by that. And a lot of my close friends are educators, and they will tell you it's never just one-sided, a child's perfect. It's never like that. It's not unusual to hear that teachers have nuanced views about pupils and students. Students can be great, students can be a-holes. It can go either way. Tommy was highlighting that this Jamel Hijazi, who was a Syrian refugee, wasn't the ideal student, and he was over glorified in his portrayal in the media. It's not a surprise. It's not new. However, did that mean he deserved to be beaten up in the way he was? No. They alleged that he was a bully.
Case. I'm being prosecuted. It's gone to the High Court, and I have to prove. I made a video stating that it was a lie, stating that Jamal wasn't innocent, and telling some facts about Jamal beating up girls, an instance that I'd been warned about by the members of this community to tell the truth about what happened at this school. You've got everything here: cameras, glasses. I don't wear glasses, so that's going to be awkward. I feel like James Bond.
It is a mess, but it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for Bailey. The idea that people would maraud the streets looking for him was appalling.
Do you know that one where he hit that girl with a hockey stick, wasn't it? We were playing hockey with a...
Okay, I understand. Perhaps there's more nuance to the case. I still don't think he deserved to get beaten up. However, and I don't think that the child that did it should have been vilified the way he did. Again, he's a child. These things do happen. It's not fair. Hate crime has a lot of nuance to it. And this is my thing. Again, the media refuses to deliberate this. It refuses to talk about it. It does a disservice to every one of you watching that it refuses to discuss it. Because when you hear this new information, you can be pulled either side when there's far more complexities to this case. Again, sometimes it is difficult to identify something as a hate crime because was it just a violent act? Was it just spontaneous, or was it genuinely fueled by hate? Is it possible for a teenager to really be fueled with that amount of vitriol at the time? I would say yes, but it is difficult to identify. However, the biggest reason why it was deplatformed, and this is where Tommy loses all credibility, he was told not to talk about this case, and he did it anyway because he felt like he was doing something right. Tommy, come. You're not 2 years old. You're not 19 years old. You're not 20. Your executive function in your brain works. Brother, know better. Just know better. He deserves a prize for idiocy. He had an NDA to not talk about it, and he made a documentary about it. No shock about it. However, it was deplatformed, but Elon Musk, being the rebel without a cause, who fights for rebels without a cause, put it on X. I'm not hating on it, but well, it's on X if you want to see. With that being said,
confirming what Jamal was like, including school staff, that as soon as I mention this camera, as soon as I mention court, I need someone to come to court, they just totally silent straight away. No one can have said that.
The media did a disservice to it, kind of labelled it as sort of BS and didn't do a fair enough analysis on some of the indiscrepancies by how the media portrayed things. Again, too often in media, things are portrayed as good versus bad, which the word is just not that simple. Tommy does highlight some good points about what happens that's happened in some Islamic communities, but again, he conflates issues. Him and Nigel Farage love to conflate an issue. He pretends as if, he's fair. I think some of his pivots against racism in the black community, against other blacks, I should say, is just a pivot. He's trying to move away from it, but he keeps saying he's not. So I'm not even saying benefit the doubt, but he keeps saying it. But his rhetoric attracts them. Tommy is a little bit of a grifter.
Hating on someone based on the colour of their skin. I never talk about the colour of skin. I don't actually see the colour of the skin. I don't care.
And he is, without a shadow of a doubt, promotes some sort of racial superiority. He does.
What you're going to see tomorrow is a celebration. We've been made to feel ashamed of being British, and all cultures are equal, which they're not, yeah? We are a superior culture. We should celebrate it. We are, I'd say, winning. I always say being born English is like winning the lottery of life, yeah? We're the best country in the world, the best nation in the world, and we want to celebrate it. We want to celebrate who we are and our identity, and we've been made to feel ashamed of it, or they've tried to dumb it down and make people feel like they're...
That being said, the fact that he's in jail, in solitary confinement for as long as he's been,
is a very interesting turn of events.
And of course, he was kept in solitary confinement. They say the authorities argue for his own safety, because he would have been targeted by some other prisoners, and there were serious concerns about his mental health.
That's right. But Tommy Robinson's spokespeople have said consistently that they do not believe that he was in solitary confinement for his own safety, that he was really struggling in prison, and that he wants to come out. Well, he will be out within the next week now, after his 18-month sentence was reduced by 4 months at the High Court.
The way he's been treated in terms of his family and his kids is unfair. In my opinion, the fact that his family and kids have been threatened, I'm not gonna lie, if any of you watch this, I don't care if you're my friends as well, but if any of you watch this and thinking his family and friends deserve to be threatened, you're a punk, and you're not someone I respect. I don't respect you, and if you think that, I still don't respect you. You're a punk, okay? His family and kids have got nothing to do with his rhetoric. I don't respect people who say that. You're not someone I rate, and I'd love to see you on a Sunday. I just love to see how you behave, because you're just not, it's just not something I respect, and I don't want to go mad.
You f***ing little chief.
And again, this video is not to defend his Islamophobia, but it's just to highlight some of the mistakes by the media, and where sometimes you have to engage with your enemy or someone you think is adversarial to you in order to understand their point. A lot of what Tommy says is birthed, actually, from classism.
Being Pakistani men and white girls, he ignored it. So Andrew Norfolk's a coward as a journalist. He ignored it. He's been given all these awards. He says in his own words, he ignored it because he was scared. Yeah. Along come the English Defence League, he wanted to take it back from the far right. So he's a coward. Along come Englishmen who are fed up, and then he wants to even demonise us for standing up and take it back. So he decided to report on it. Great that he did, because it boomed, because he's a middle-class, well-educated toff, and that's who they listen to. They hate us.
See, Tommy speaks to people, specifically white men, but specifically a white community at large part, that feel left behind, that feel trampled on by many of the elites, by the government. And that is where we can all relate to him. You see, the rhetoric he spews is full of hate, is full of misguided anger, but the people he speaks to, and this episode is more to understand them than really his potential grifting ways, is that where he highlights those indiscrepancies and people feel left behind by what the government is doing, and it's been doing it, If we don't engage in these conversations more and try to understand how people have been manipulated into Brexit, into voting for Trump in America, we lose the argument by dismissing all his points, because they're not all complete lies. Conflated, but not all of them. And people who feel left behind by the government, they're talking about as typical middle-class people. Those are people who have been let down by the government, the education system. And we can all relate to that. We can all relate to it. And again, I'm not asking you to accept Islamophobia, his hate speech. I'm not. That ain't what I'm saying. But I'm saying, how did he get there? And how can we stop young people or people who are on the fringes from being sort of radicalized into his ideology? Islam is an amazing religion. I would not have said peace be upon him about the Prophet if I agreed with him. I wouldn't do that. But where he highlights some truth, we do a disservice to those victims. And we have to engage with it. And we have to engage with people who felt left behind by this government, because we're all feeling it to this day. Constantly things are changing. If it's not small stuff, I mean, we always talk about housing, right? And the stamp duty tax being taken away, increased housing prices, cost of living. We all can relate to this. So let's stop fighting over nuances and start to focus on the larger points. Understand thou enemy. Understand it, because really and truly we have a little bit in common with those people, because we feel let down by the government just as much as them. We're maybe perhaps not been misdirected by the people that follow Tommy Robinson and Tommy Robinson himself. And some of his treatment, the solitary confinement, all it will do is embolden his people more and embolden him. And that's not what we should be doing. And it's really due to the letdown by the media. The media's failure to engage in nuance, and the few people who do it in a very clickbaity way.
The illegal wars, the illegal murders by governments, all for oil, all for profit, which is what's going on in Ukraine now. Same bullshit. I think that we, like you have the Great Reset. We need a people's reset. People really need to unite together, and they really need to challenge everything now more than ever. We're all going to become slaves to their systems, and the only way you're going to get that is through unity. And the West, or people of the West, we've had such degeneracy now, which is why a lot of people are converting. What alternative have we got? If you've got the Muslim community and you've got what they're offering, what is the alternative now? Because it's just degeneracy. Yeah, it's so weak, it's so pathetic. Yeah, and I think that we really need to really rebuild communities. We really need to rebuild our identities, and we need to definitely have unity. But that unity is going to have to come from everyone, because the only time that the government are going to be fearful, the only time the cabal are going to be fearful, is when they see those that dislike each other, those that have problems with each other, standing together against them. Our enemy is the establishment.
Okay, so my final post-edit clip, the conclusion of this epic video. Is it really that epic? I don't know, but I'm babbling. I think the question I want to pose to you guys is, do you think Tommy's misunderstood? Do you think white middle-class liberals are really the problem? Do they have a way of sounding like they're on the right side of history while they never quite seem to be doing anything to change that?
Political prisoners in this country, but no one talks about it, because we are too busy pointing at Russia, pointing at China, pointing at the Middle East, telling everybody, look at them bad guys over there. We do everything by the book. We have British law and order, integrity, and yet there's political prisoners in this country that if you mention one guy's name, you get shut down immediately.
One guy's name?
That's how wrong this is. One guy's name, yeah. I'm not going to say it because you won't appreciate it.
I think I know who you mean. And I think the individual in question is a man called, or goes by the name of Tommy Robinson. His real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. He has seen his sentence today, I think, shortened to the point where I think he could be out next week. He's not a political prisoner. He committed contempt of court, which is quite a serious act to commit, and went to prison for it.
It's a civil offence, though, Tom. It's a civil offence.
It's not a civil offence if you do it on numerous occasions, having been warned on numerous occasions not to do it.
It's a civil offence, and he was in a Category A prison, and he was in solitary confinement, or has been in solitary confinement, for almost the duration of his punishment.
Yep, and maybe that needs some questions answering about why someone was put in a Category A prison in solitary confinement for contempt of court. I understand that, Lee, but he's not a political prisoner. He broke the law of the land. He needs to be punished for breaking the law of the land. Contempt of court is quite a serious matter. It wasn't the first occasion. Prison it may well be.
And why do I think that's important to ask? Because sometimes it may be questions that you are left with. It may be questions that Tommy poses as well. I think Tommy does have somewhere amongst his wacky, crazy, xenophobic, Islamophobic, at times even racist diatribes. Yeah, that's what I want to say. I do think he has the purest intentions. I do think that a part of the Rotherham Luton scandal, where people were ignored, the cries of women were ignored, that class had an intersectionality. And for those people, discuss race a lot. Friends of mine that we discuss race a lot. Some people, I've got friends that work, multiple friends that work in EDI. Shout out to Gregory. Is class racism's cousin? Is this where we see the failure of the police? Is this where we see a failure of the state? Why was it so hidden? Why is it that our government struggles to take accountability? These are questions that Tommy's posed. He has all those negative, but these are questions that are posed. And I think one of the ultimate things from this is the evasion of that, evading, I said evading earlier, but the evading of that conversation, of those nuances, emboldens his conversations. He should be freed soon, but it's a bit worrying that it took all this for it to happen. Again, at the end of the day, he was just making a political point, one that was very easy to tear down if you just engaged with it. It was very easy to see the problems, the conflating of issues, you know. It was very easy, and I often wonder, why is it that the media refuses to engage in nuances? Why does it simplify cases to black and white, good versus evil, when that message is quite disturbing, when there's far more nuance and understanding to it? The final question I pose at the start of this is, are white middle-class liberals really the problem? Like I said, they've got a good way of sounding like they're on the right side of history. Well, when you end up working with them, they're often the most passive-aggressive. Why is it that they're so, and it's particularly ones in the media I'm talking about, particularly the ones in the media, but they're so outrightly fervent against a Tommy Robinson, call him out quicker, seems sometimes more outraged by the Islamophobia than people who are part of Islam, the Muslim community, call out racism before anyone else. But when you talk about real change, things that how change will happen, they always bring up the minutiae. They always bring up the granular details. When did we get to a place when being far right meant you're racist? You might have tendencies, you might have a very interesting immigration policy, but when did that get conflated? Is that a media spin? And is that why we struggle to engage with when Tommy makes and the occasional point correct? Is that how we've got there? Is that how we've got there? When Tommy makes an occasional point correct, that you feel like agreeing with him means that you're a racist, even though you're not. I can almost promise you people will feel as if that would make them a racist, even though they don't agree with 99% of what Tommy says. And I'll ask you why and how we got to that stage, and why is it such a... When did that line become so clear? Maybe the question you're probably wondering from me, if you even care. Do I think he's misunderstood? No. No, I think he's a grifter. But I think he occasionally makes a right point, and his own presence highlights some of the contradictions within the media. And do I think the media themselves, do they care? Are they a part of the problem? Especially the white middle class media? Yeah. I think they actually mimic Tommy in their stance, in his fervor to not take any accountability. I think they mimic him in a very odd way, and I think careful when debating with people like Tommy or engaging with people like him. They may be coming from a more vulnerable place, like I said, a class place, where they feel not outclassed, but they feel out of place just as much as any other group of society. And I think sometimes understanding things from that standpoint can unite us more. And I think Tommy does make a good point when he says that. But, you know, that is my concluding point. And what is underneath on the words? I'm out.
I'll punch your fucking head in,
Yeah, here, tag.
You stupid little fucking dick.
Get him out, bro. Get him out. Man, you're not letting me go. Let me get up. Let me get up. Let me get up.
No.
What is this?